There we go. And I want to welcome you to this virtual gathering, whether you are a new caregiver or an experienced caregiver. Many of us who are not now caregivers will become one with life's unexpected events. We want to be sure that all of you are aware of the many resources that are available at AARP for caregivers that provide helpful information, articles, stories, and virtual offerings to connect with others. A helpful guide called Prepare to Care can be found at this site and is available in multiple languages and for specific audiences such as veterans and the LGBTQ community. So I'm going to put that link in the chat, and I'll put it in there a few times so that you can pull it down if you'd like it. It's very important that caregivers also make time to care for themselves. We're so glad that you're joining us tonight and allowing yourself to take a break and enjoy a fun activity. AARP is here to support you, and we hope you enjoy tonight's creative night. In just a minute, I'm going to, which I just did, I already started to record the event, and it's going to be available in a few days. I'll put the address in of where you can find it. It's a YouTube address, and so you can pull down not just tonight's event, but several events going back. So if you have any questions, please put those in the chat, and then we'll address those periodically throughout the evening. So thank you so much, Megan, for being with us tonight, and take it away.
Thank you. Thank you, Linda. I'll go ahead and pin my screen. I want to thank everyone so much for being here. My name is Megan Van Wart. I'm based in Vermont in my studio, and it's such a pleasure to be here. We were just talking a little bit as we were getting started that we have many of you are from all over the country. We have folks from the West Coast to the East Coast, and we are always so pleased for you to be with us. We would not be here tonight without the support of AARP New Hampshire. And they believe that this creative experience is enriching. And if you've been here before, you know how it feels just to practice your creativity, to unwind. So I just want to thank you, the AARP New Hampshire community, for having us here. We would not be here without you tonight. So Linda, thank you for the really kind and warm introduction. Linda's going to be sharing a variety of resources with us throughout tonight's class. So be sure as they come up in the chat to check those out. Without further ado, I will go ahead and give you a preview of what we're going to be painting tonight. Now, always in our classes, you can use any mediums that you wish. I usually always use acrylic paints in our classes. So if you ever want to use watercolors, if you have a new pastel set or colored pencils, I still encourage you to join and think about a friend or a family member that may benefit from a class like this too. It's really enriching, and we keep this very approachable and easy. So no painting experience required to join our classes, okay? So we have kind of I call this like a Southwest kind of inspiration tonight. I love the colors. The colors I see are rich, beautiful blues and greens with some of those warm tones of the yellows and oranges for the kind of abstract flowers on the front. So I'm going to be using acrylic paints tonight. I always have yellow, blue, and red as my primary colors, and I'll mix colors with you along the way, just in case you don't have other colors like in your paint set. So don't worry if you only have a few here or there, it's no big deal. Now you also get to choose your orientation for your canvas tonight. I'm doing portrait, which is vertical, but if at home you want to turn your canvas on the side, you can do that too, okay? So if you want to do yours landscape or horizontal, you can do that at home. And then, so you'll need something to paint on. I'm painting on acrylic paper, which is just an alternative to like a canvas or a canvas board. Other supplies I have with me is I have a small plate to mix colors. So this is just a plastic palette, but you can always use a paper plate at home, or you could use like a small dinner plate. Acrylic paint will come off and it's no big deal. It'll wash off with a little soap and water. I always have a pencil for a little bit of sketching. And I have an array of brushes. I kind of have small, medium, and large with my cup of water here. And I use these really basic craft brushes like in all my classes. And my point is you don't need anything too fancy for our classes, okay? You can use really basic supplies and still have a really good time with us, okay? Okay, so what we're going to do to jump in and get started is we are going to do a little bit of sketching. Sketching gives us a little bit of groundwork for what we're going to put where. And the benefit of that is it gives us a little bit of a confidence boost of like what the heck we're doing. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to say, well, where do we want the ground to meet the sky? So for me, I'm going to find kind of the middle of my picture, and I'm not just going to do a straight line. And this is a little, I'm going to adjust this just a little bit here. I'm not just going to do a straight line in the middle. I'm going to kind of do a little bit of like a hill kind of coming down and a hill kind of coming up. I'm going to adjust my lighting here. And I'm going to draw a little, I'm going to put a little more pressure on my pencil just so you can see my line. But at home, you're welcome to just do a light pencil mark, okay? But that's my ground. Maybe I have like a little bit of a hill here. I'm not sure. But you can see like this is where the ground is roughly. And if you want to take a minute to sketch a mountain here in the foreground, I'm going to add a couple of mountains in here. So maybe there's a little bit of a mountain coming in here. And I'm having all the mountains start a little higher on the edges, and they're all going to kind of find their way down to the middle. So I'm going to add in maybe 3 or 4 little mountains, and they can be as high or as low as you want. So I'm just adding in, see a few mountains in the distance. And maybe I'll make this one a little bit lower. So you can play with your lines. That's why using a pencil is good for you to get the composition in place before you start sketching, which is kind of nice. Because then you can just paint and have fun and not worried too much about, what you're putting where, because you can kind of get that in now. So let's see, I have a little bit of a mountain there. Maybe I'll just tuck another little mountain here in the distance. And I'm kind of going for a little bit of a southwest vibe tonight. Now, someone asked a question about the recording. The recording will be available on AARP New Hampshire's YouTube page. So what they do is they upload it to their YouTube space, and that's where all of our other paint videos are, which is great. And I may be able to grab the picture for you and upload it. Let me see if I can grab that really quick. And I can do a digital, let me just I'll upload this to the window really quick. As folks are sketching. AARP, New Hampshire, May. Can you guys believe we're in May already? It's crazy. I'm going to upload the graphic to the chat window. So if you'd like a visual picture of our inspiration, is right in the chat window for you. So I'm just taking a minute to sketch the mountains, and I'll go a little darker with my lines. If you're using a pencil at home, I would go light with your lines, but I'm going to do mine a little darker just for demonstration purposes only. So we're getting our lines in, and you can see I have quite a bit of sky, and then I have all this space down here. So this is my ground, and then this is my sky, and these are my mountains. And if you want to get a little fun and creative, we're going to put a little bit of a path in. If you want to play right here in the middle, if you want to do like a little bit of a path that's going to kind of come in, this is going to be all green right here, and then there's going to be a little bit of a path. So use your imagination here. We're going to hold space for a path right here. Now I'm doing it nice and dark. Don't do dark. This is going to be a little bit of a pathway. So this is going to be a lighter color. I'm sorry. You're right. The inspiration didn't go to everyone. I'm so sorry. Let me resend that. Thank you for telling me. I sent it just to Linda. Linda doesn't need to see that. Sorry, the inspiration's coming, my friends. Thank you. So I wanted to do a little path. When you do a path, try to make it really narrow here in the distance. And then I want you to have it open up. So you can imagine walking doop, 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 doop down the path this way. So I want you to get some of those objects down. So you should have a line in the middle for your ground and your mountains. You should have some type of mountains in the picture. And then you have a sky. Okay. Awesome. So I'll give you all a minute to play with that. Now we can talk about colors as you're finishing up your sketching. I will do green in this little green area right here. I'm going to be putting a big bush kind of in this space down here on the bottom. And my mountains are going to be blue. The mountains are going to be a darker blue in the front, and they're actually going to get lighter as we work our way in the background. But we're going to start our way in the sky, and then we'll work our way down the page. So we're going to do a nice light blue kind of white color in the sky. And you can be as abstract. No problem, Deb. Thank you so much. Or you can be as simple as you want. So mix a light blue color of choice for the sky. And I will do that with you. Now you're going to have and I always have a little bit of white and black paint too. I didn't mention that, but I always have white and black paint. Always white and black paint. Okay. And I use really basic acrylic craft paint. You can get it at the dollar store. You can buy it at Walmart. You can buy it in Michael's. Anywhere. You can buy it from Amazon. I love buying paint also from Blick. Blick has great paint, different qualities of paint. So there's my white. I didn't put it in a very good place. Put it right in the middle. And then I have a little bit of blue. And I'm gonna grab one of the bigger brushes I have, which is this one. Let's see what else I have here for brushes. I have this brush. It's a kind of a 1/2 inch flat tip brush. I get my brush a little bit wet, and I'm just going to take a little bit of the white and put it over here and grab a little bit of the blue. I want to mix a nice light blue. Now you can just have fun with your sky. You can paint your sky any way that you wish. Find a light blue color you like, and you can make it kind of textured. You can add more white. Any way you wish to fill in your sky, you can do that. But this is where art can be really therapeutic. If you want to add a little water to your brush, you can add a little water to your brush. But be really fluid and playful. You can do some long, smooth brush strokes. You're going to see my pencil lines, which is okay. Grab a little more paint. Any way you want to fill in this sky. If you want to add in some darker colors, you can add in some darker colors. If you want to do a sunrise, you can do a sunrise. If you decide you want to add yellow to this for a sunrise, just wait for your blue to dry, and then I'll show you how to add a little bit of a sunrise or towards the bottom here, or a sunset. But just let the blue dry, otherwise you're going to get a green. But you can always add in a little yellow or orange if you want to after. That's no big deal. Kind of follow the ridge of your mountain line. Again, you can dip your brush in a little bit of water. You can take this as easy or as complex as you want for your sky. But let's just get some nice sky color in. And we can always add more to it. Now, one of the things I'll share about these classes is that everyone paints at different speeds. Everyone has different levels of art experience. No matter how fast or how slow I'm going for you, I just want you to kind of ignore me in a way, and I want you to go at your own pace. My goal is to guide you through the steps, but I want you to go at your own pace through each of these steps. Okay, so drawing can be hard. Some of you may have struggled with the drawing or sketching piece. Just know that's okay.
So Megan, I was just hearing a report in the last week on my public radio station about how important spending time doing exactly this kind of
Yeah,
thing, creativity, is to the brain, and how healthy it is.
yeah. There's so many benefits, Linda. And for me, one of the big, and I've been teaching for almost 10 years now, these types of classes for, adults, is that of all ages and, different, interest levels, is that showing up is one thing, practicing creativity is another, but being able to let go of like expectations and just to be present with the experience is incredibly meditative and renewing, far more than we can, even describe or talk about tonight. It's very therapeutic. And it's really a very healthy thing for the brain for sure. So I have some fun. I have a very basic blue. Now, if anybody wants to get like a little crazy, I could add in a little bit of a secondary blue and just add in a little bit of secondary color. Like if I want to add in a little bit of movement, and I don't have a plan here, but in the inspiration, there's a little bit of, darker blues that kind of touch in. So if I want to add in a little bit, some more darker blues, just kind of whipping through. There's also more whites as well. So one of the nice things about acrylic paint is that, and we're not going to spend too much time in the sky, but I'm just allowing you to be a little playful if you want to be. But you can, when things dry with acrylics, you can go in and add more paint. It will stick, which is really kind of nice. So I'm just adding in a little bit of motion, with just a little bit of maybe these are like wispy clouds. I don't ever do wispy clouds. As some of you have been in my classes before, you're gonna be like, what is Megan doing tonight? I don't know. Maybe this cold, it has like a new season of me here. I don't know. I'm gonna do some of these fun wispy clouds, and I'm using kind of the edge of my brush to kind of create a little bit of this wisp factor. And I'll hold this up. I'm just having fun, really, friends. And this is one of the things I love demonstrating in these classes is that it's okay just to kind of like lean in to your ideas and your crazy thoughts through these classes. So just kind of go with it. Just roll with it here. I got a little wispy cloud factor happening here. I never do wispy clouds. This is so funny. It's all the wind we've been having lately. So I'm just adding a few wispy clouds, but we're going to work our way down, I promise. And if you want to just let your sky dry and not wispify it here like I am, that's fine. I'm embracing my Southwest here. All right. So I'm going to let that dry. It's very basic. I was just having fun with some different things. I will upload the digital version of the inspiration again. Hello, Antoinette from San Antonio. We're so glad you're here. All right. So there, I'm uploading the inspiration again. Now we're going to move down to the mountains. So the mountains for me are going to be a beautiful bluish green color. So I'm going to take my blue and add in a little yellow. And you don't have to do this if you don't want to, but if you want to make the same color I'm doing, you can do that with me. Now, I'm going to make a bluish green color, which is going to be really fun. So blue with a little bit of yellow. And I'm going to tell you, we're going to paint the mountains in the foreground first. And we're going to work our way back and get lighter. So hang on to your hat because this is going to be really fun. As I spray paint all over. That's not good. All right. Always have a paper towel on hand, my friends, because paint, once you have starting to have some fun, that paint is just going to get a little crazy. All right, so I have a little bit of blue paint right here, and I'm going to add a little bit of yellow. And a little bit of yellow will give it just a little bit of a green tinge. So I'm going for like a nice blue-green kind of teal color. But you can have it as blue as you want it to be. So I'm going for like a blue-green, and that's a beautiful color right there. And that's going to be the color of like my darkest mountain in the foreground. So that happened pretty quickly for me, but it might not happen that quickly for you. So just take a minute. Again, I just mixed blue and a little bit of yellow. And I have a nice different color. It's really pretty right there. And the mountains in the foreground are going to be this color. And I'm going to decide what those mountains are. So it's going to be this mountain right here, this one. And you can have fun. You can start painting it in. And it's going to be this one. And I'll add some other colors in too. This one's going to have a little bit of blues in it too. It's going to be fun. So I can dip a little bit of blues into this one and a little bit of this. So we'll be mixing some colors together. It'll be really fun. So we're focusing on the mountains in the foreground first. Those are the big ones in the front. And if I'm going fast, we just have lots of different layers. So I'm just getting us going. We typically work our way in the background with acrylic paint, and we work our way in the background to the foreground because we have a big green plant right here. So we're going to make sure we get this ground painted in. All the stuff in the foreground. And I'm just going to bring this over because I can. And I'm going to paint this mountain in here. So this mountain may have a little bit of blue kind of intersecting just to separate them a little bit. And you're going to lighten your colors, lighten this color and work your way back around to the back, painting those other mountains. So there's a little bit of reflection right here, so it looks a little lighter. But you're going to fill in these mountains. There we go. And you're going to get lighter as you go back. Now, if you like purples, you can incorporate purples. I'm going to take a little bit of this, and I'm going to start doing a little bit of a lighter color here in the background. So work your way to the background. If you need to mix more of your colors, this is where you can kind of take your time. I need to mix a little bit more. It's okay if you need to mix a little bit more, but bring in a little bit of white and you can kind of create that little bit of that lighter color for this backside mountain. And we'll be adding some texture to these mountains to bring them to life a little bit. In the inspiration, there is a lot of different colored texture, and we'll be introducing that in just a minute. But we can start with a base color to get us going. So base colors get us started, and then we can come in and add all that fun texture. And if you're new to these classes, sometimes, and I say this in all the classes because it's so funny, is like you might think we're painting something from like the 6th grade, but we add so many details throughout the class ongoing. It's really incredible to see how all this work evolves. So just hang tight, have a little patience if you're new with us, because our art really does transform and evolve into some really amazing things. And I'm going to get a little lighter as we paint our final mountain. So just try to get a little lighter with whatever colors you're using and just see what happens. If you want to use a smaller brush as you work your way back, you can. I'll probably go in with a smaller brush and do some refining. But I'm going to add some other colors into these mountains.
So Megan, Annabelle had asked for some suggestions on watercolors, and I think you were saying pretty much anything will do.
Yeah, let me check that out. Thank you so much. Please offer suggestions on watercolors. So Annabelle, if you're using watercolors tonight, you're going to want to start in the background and just work your way to the foreground. And if anybody else is doing watercolors, you want to start with your lighter colors first, and then you're going to use darker colors over time. Annabelle, if you have specific questions about watercolors, I'm happy to answer those for you. Just let me know. But watercolors, you can follow along with us because we are working our way. Well, we're using lighter colors first. With watercolors, you usually start with objects in the foreground and work your way back, because if I'm painting like a large aloe plant with watercolors, you have to do that first in the foreground. So you hold space for that. And then you can fill in the background from there. With watercolors, it would be difficult to paint an aloe plant on top after because of everything else you've layered underneath it, right? Because with watercolor, you have to use the background in the space for what it is. Yeah. So good questions. I'm happy to answer more if there's other specific ones. But I'm just taking a small brush and I can kind of play with the ridgeline of the mountain a little bit. I can make it a little bit more rocky, which is kind of fun. So my goal for you all is paint the basic colors in first, and I'm going to show you how to add in accent colors as our next step. So I want you to, so you can see my mountains are clear. I have the darker mountains in the foreground. I have one kind of mid-tone mountain in the background. And then I have a lighter one back here. The other thing I want you to play with, and this is like a little bit of a level 2 tip, but for my lightest mountain in the background, I can add a little bit of a lighter color to it. So if I want to add a little bit of like a white to my lighter mountain in the distance, I can add just like a little bit of accent color to it. See that? So for each layer, find a lighter color, and you can do this with darker colors too. So let's see. Find a lighter color. So like I could take this green layer and find a little bit of a lighter color, and I can add in a little bit of lightness maybe to the top side of the mountain. And you can play with kind of how you blend it in. So take a couple minutes to get the base colors in, and then try finding like a secondary color that you can bring into that mountain that's like sort of similar. It could be darker or lighter. See, I'm adding in a little bit of texture, a secondary color to each mountain. So we're going to play with this for a few minutes. This is a little experimental, so just take your time and just see what happens. But there's, maybe I'll bring in a little bit of the greens on this one. See how I'm bringing in just a light secondary color. Isn't that fun? Just to kind of see. If you want to use your finger to smudge it in, you could use your finger to smudge it in. If you want to use your brush, you could use your brush. Sometimes it's fun using your finger. Isn't that funny? If you want to go back and add some more other colors, you can have some fun and bring in some other colors. Think how you can bring your mountains to life in any way that you want. Maybe a little bit of extra blue. Just see what happens. Isn't that fun to think about? Think about what colors you could just bring in. Just pick one mountain at a time. Isn't that fun? You never know what's going to happen. Never know. So my goal for you is to, oh, I love this. And yes, you could absolutely paint this with your grandchildren later. That's such a great idea. But consider bringing in one secondary color to your mountains to add a little bit of depth or a little bit of light. So depth you can use by using a darker color. And light you can use, and maybe I'll bring in a little bit of yellow and green on this one just to see kind of see what happens. Yeah, you can really play around and be a little abstract here. So this is a little bit of a yellowish green I brought in right there because my grass and my green grass is going to be down here. So isn't that interesting? How you can bring a little bit of like the vegetation up onto the mountain if you wanted to. But this is your artwork, and I love just giving you a little space to just be really fun and creative. So I'm not going to rush you on this step. I want you to be playful here. I'm showing you what it's like to bring a little green vegetation into this mountain if you wanted to. I'm holding my brush a little further back. Try to be a little abstract here. It can be really tricky, but hold your brush a little further back and just do a little bit of dabbing. Lean back in your chair and just see what magic happens. Do a couple brush strokes. I'm bringing this green down here just so you can see how this will be kind of a green for this space. Just so if you want to bring any of the green vegetation up into this mountain over here, you can. And I might bring a little bit of that green vegetation over here, but not too much. We're going to put a big plant on this side. So you can see the scene that we're creating, which is really fun. Now, Linda's going to be posting links throughout class for upcoming classes, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. So I encourage you to check those out. But I hope everyone's enjoying themselves so far. So your goal is to bring in a secondary color of choice. So I brought in a little bit more blue. I brought in a little green. I might bring in a little bit of a contrasting color over here. So I might put a little bit of black on my plate. You don't have to use black if you don't want to. I could use purple. So if I don't want to use black, I could do purple. Blue and red will give me purple. That will give me a nice contrasting color. So let's see here. Let's do a little blue and a little red will give me purple. And that will give me kind of a nice darker color to play with on my other mountain. Now, I love being adventurous with colors, and I do this in all of my classes. And believe it or not, I don't have a plan on what I'm going to do before each of these classes. Isn't that crazy? And I love being authentic and sporadic and in the moment with you because one of the things I've learned about art and teaching that I love sharing with each of you in these classes is that you don't always need to have a plan. You have to trust the creative process, and that can be scary, but the more you let yourself just be and you just show up and you just let go of an expectation and just say whatever happens happens, really amazing things can happen. And that's what I do for these classes. I show up and I say I'm going to add a little bit of this green here, and isn't that a fun green that showed up, that green vegetation, right? I'm going to mix blue and purple for my contrasting color. And I can add some of this contrast on the top of this mountain over here. And it just gives it a little bit of this and that. And the nice thing is that if you paint something you don't like, you can always paint over it. So there's really very minimal risk. And I'll just, this is wet, but you can see a little bit of that purple. And if I don't like that, I can easily kind of come in and I can paint over some of it. Like it's not a big deal. So just know that you can always paint over something you don't like. You may need to let it dry, for a minute. Like there's nothing wrong with that. So just give yourself a little bit of grace. And wherever you want to play and be courageous tonight, I applaud you. If you want to just play and just see what happens, that's always good too. So I'm going to go nice and slow. I'm going to go nice and slow. And I'm going to do a nice dark blue here. And I'm going to add a little bit more. And you might need to mix more paints along the way. And that will be just fine. That will be just fine. So I'm going to make a little bit more of this dark teal. And with art, I love just demonstrating to take your time. I know, isn't it? So funny. Oh, and Deb was using her finger. I love that. But I'm just going to take my time. I'm mixing a little bit of this blue. It was blue and red, so I need to, was it blue and red? Let me see here. Isn't it funny trying to mix the color that you were mixing before? Okay, here we go. I think I just had a lot more blue than yellow. There we go. Add a little more yellow. I just need a little more yellow. Isn't it funny trying to mix the color you had before? You'll figure it out. You just have to give yourself a little grace, friends. I need a little more yellow. There we go. A little more yellow. So always just take your time to mix more colors. The goal that we're working on right now is I want you to add a secondary tone to each of these mountains. And I'm just, again, being really playful with you in this instance. And you can do blending, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. All right. There we go. So you're just going to do as much or as little as you wish, and then you can move your way down to this grass area. So I'm just going to blend in the purple a little bit, and then I'll let this dry and I'll come back to it. I'm also going to be putting a lot of flowers over this mountain right here. So if there's something that you don't like, just know you can always kind of cover it up with like grass or like a flower or a tree or something. It's actually really nice to know that. So I'm going to let that dry. If you want to play with the grass that's coming, if you're going to play with your land now, and if you want to spend more time on your mountains, feel free to do that. But if you want to shift down to your grass and just let your mountains dry, that's fine too. Excuse me. I'm a little sick, so apologies for my noises. I'm going to grab a big brush and I'm going to do a little bit of a bluish green with a little bit of yellow. And I'm going to fill in this kind of grassy field area right here on this side of my path. If anybody's just joining us, we did a little bit of a path here, which is kind of fun. I'm just going to bring this green just under this area just a little bit. And you can bring this down. I'm going to get a little darker, friends, as we get closer. So we're going to just, that's a little too dark, but you want to just slowly make it to be a little bit darker in this area. And you can blend that any way you wish. And this is your artwork, so this can be as abstract or as precise as you wish. So just take that with a grain of salt. Okay. And we're going to be putting a big bush over here, but I'm just going to get a little bit darker. Not like too dark of a green, but it's a little lighter in the distance. And I'm just going to slowly blend these together. If you want to use a little water to help blend your colors, aren't these colors gorgeous? Aren't they so inspiring? It's so pretty. And I'm only going to go about halfway down because we're going to put in a big shrub right here in this area. So you can see I have my sky, my mountains are coming to life, which is really fun. And I'm going right along the edge of my path. And we're going to go a little crazy here in a minute with our shrub, okay? But I want to come down far enough, show the background. There's some foliage and there's something here, okay? So if you want to come down about halfway on this side, that's fine. And if you want it to be a little more brown, like a little more southwest, you can mix in a little red. We'll give it a little bit of an orange tinge. So we'll do something a little different tonight. If I take a little bit of my yellowy green color, watch this. I can make it into be like a little bit of a brownish tinge if I put a little bit of white. So if you want to make brown, it's red and green. So red, green, yellow will give you a little bit of a brown kind of tinge. If I want to make this have a little bit of a brown tinge, I think I need a little bit more green. It's not going to be perfect, but if you want to give it a little bit of a brown tinge, there we go. You can add in a little bit of like a brown to this grass, this green area, if you wanted to give it a little bit more of a desert feel. Try that, okay? It doesn't have to be green if you don't want it to be. I'm just going to add in a little bit of this beige brown to make it more of like a sandy look. This white path is going to be kind of a sandy color, but this is just to kind of help us make it a little less, you know, a little more desert-like. And this is not desert colors, but I'm trying here. I live in New England, so it's not natural for me. We didn't start with desert colors, so I'm just adding in a little bit of a brown tone. It's so funny. All right. You can grab a little bit of white, a little bit of red, a little green, mix that together. This is one of the fun things about art. It's just seeing what kind of colors we can mix and say, hey, does this work? I don't know. Let's bring some of it in. Let's see if it works or not, right? There we go. It's a little bit of a sandy color. Just kind of softening that. And if you don't like it, it's okay. You can always paint over it. It's no big deal. Okay, good enough. All right. So I'm going to let that dry, and I can always, we're going to put a lot of stuff over it, so it's no big deal. So I'm going to give everybody a note here for what's next. We're going to color in the path together. The path is going to be like a beige color, like going to the beach, sandy color. If you want to find that color with me, jump on here. It's going to be yellow and red, and then a little bit of white. So yellow and red will give you orange. Very little red will go a long way. And then add a little bit of white to it. If you want a little bit of a brown tone, you can add a tiny touch of green. I had a little bit of kind of tinted colors, so I had a little bit of green on my brush. But white's going to be your friend here. See that sandy color? So you first want to mix a little orange. To make an orange color, it's yellow with a little bit of red. And then, aren't they pretty colors? I know the colors are so pretty. And then a little tiny touch of blue or green on your plate will give you a little bit of that sandy color. And I'm just going to come in and just give my path a basic color. We're going to add a lot of texture to this, friends. but this is going to give my path a basic color. So again, we're just starting with the basics, start in the distance, and I'm just giving my path a color. We can add more white to this after, but just give your path a basic color. Kind of start in that little corner. You can use any brush you're comfortable with. I like using my big brush because I stuck my teeny little bristles holding my brush sideways in the top of that tiny path. And then I can use the wide bristles on my brush to fill it right in. And then you can also use your water to just spread out, put a little water on your brush to spread out that paint. So water can really help move paint around on your canvas, especially even with acrylic. It's really fun while it's still wet. You can use a lot less paint. So if you haven't played with using water with a little bit of acrylic paint, I do it in nearly all my classes. It's really fun. You can do a nice smooth line. Now my path. This class is recorded. It'll be available on their YouTube channel in just a few days. And Linda will share a link to the YouTube channel again for us for reference.
And people were asking about the next class. So I was thinking it was the 10th, the second Wednesday, but it's actually June 17th.
June 17th is our next class.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you, Linda. If
You're
anybody
welcome.
wants to add like a little bit of white into your path, you can do that now. I'm going to wait for mine to dry a little bit. It's smudging. So don't add white quite yet because it's smudging. So I'm going to stop painting and we'll add white to our path after. So let your path dry for a minute and then we'll add some white texture. If you want to add white now, you can, but mine's smudging a little bit. So I'm not going to touch it for the moment. Now, if you want to have fun, we're working our way down the painting and we are filling in the background first. Then we're going to add all the fun grass-like texture. If you want to add a cactus, you can think about what you want to add, to your painting. Do you want to add a cactus? Do you want to add just some crazy shrubs? You can think about that now as you're starting to see everything come together. We're not adding any of that yet though, but you can think about it. We're going to add in some basic color right here. Just a little bit more. I'm going to add just a little bit more in. Let's see. And I'm probably going to go with, I don't want to add too much more. I might just add in like a little bit of this green again, or maybe this green and tan as like another layer. The reason I'm adding in just a little bit of a basic background color here is because if I add small grass or flowers in this space, I don't want to see white. And if these are multiple colors, that's totally fine. It doesn't have to be all the same color. And you're not even going to see this line. I'm going to have a big plant right there. So I'm just putting in these basic colors. Put something here, and they don't have to be dark. We're going to add dark colors in to be a little courageous here in a minute. But add something basic. I'm doing a light green here just to add in a basic background color. So take a few minutes to just add in. I want to make sure your path is painted. Your path is drying as we speak. We'll come back to the path. And you can see I've painted everything entirely. And that we're going to add a lot of character. And we're going to add more to this as we get going. And again, I just want to say a big thank you to Linda and the AARP New Hampshire team. We would not be here tonight without their support. So sending lots of love and grateful thanks to Linda and the team for having us. I encourage you all. I hope you're having so much fun. We're so glad you're here, truly giving yourself a little bit of a break and a retreat just for an hour and a half or so, 2 hours. I encourage you to join us in our next class on June 17th. Linda will share the registration link throughout our class tonight. I also encourage you to think about a friend or a family member or a neighbor, an aunt or a cousin, someone else you think that would love to join us. They don't have to be in the same room with you. We love for you to have someone join you, and you could have your phone on, with them as you paint along. And it's so much fun to bring a friend and do this with someone as well, if you're not already. So I want to thank you so much for being with us. And there's so many steps to tonight's class, and it's okay to be behind. There's a lot of details in tonight's class. So I encourage you to please just take your time and go at your own speed, as always. My goal is to have you complete, all the core steps for our class. And from there, um, you can watch the recording and continue to add on as you wish. So don't feel bad if you are behind. Everyone does things differently. Um, Mine is certainly not done by any means, but it's these basic details that I just love to get down to show you so we can make sure we get in all the basics within our time together. Mhm. Which is really fun. So as folks are still working, I mean, we've been painting for about 45 minutes. What we can do is we can look at and say, okay, do we have all the basic areas painted? If we want to take a minute and look at our mountains, do we want to do any additional work on our mountains? Because our next steps are all the details in the foreground. So I want you to really be happy with the mountain details before we do all the other things. So I might come in here and take a couple more minutes and play with my mountain detail before I jump in and I do some of the other areas. So I want you to be happy with your mountains before you jump in and you paint a lot of these other things on top, if that makes sense. I want you to be happy with your basic grass color is no big deal. Because that's just, there's gonna be a lot of other fun things going on over that. So, but I do want to be happy with this mountain and these grasses right here. So I can just take a minute to come in and just really dial in some of these details. There we go. And I can come in again with the secondary colors, a little bit of the lights, a little bit of the darks. And you can be really playful about, like, if you want to bring in any of these little bits of purple, you can bring in a little bits of these purples. Art is always about experimenting. So you can use darker colors to create contrast, and you can use lighter colors to create lighted areas. So that's kind of neat. Always these fun different things to consider as you paint. And you learn about this in different classes. I'm adding a little bit of depth. So you can see I put a little bit of purple up on the ridge line here, which looks really fun. I could add a little bit of purple up here on this ridge line if I wanted to really make this ridge line stand out. You can kind of add little rock crevices and little valleys on your mountains just by adding a few dark colors here along the way. It's kind of fun. And you can do the same thing with the distance. So it's just really about the colors you use and where you use them. So I could do something similar back here. And this, some of you may not want to do this much detail, and that's okay. I'm just having fun and just demonstrating different examples for you. I'm just being really playful tonight. I also may add a little bit of like a darker green down here on top of this like forest line. I think that's fine though, the way it is. But we're going to add some of the bigger, bolder items in just a few minutes. So I'm going to give you all, I'm going to keep an eye on the clock. I'm going to give everybody 2 more minutes to finish up your mountains. At least be happy with most of it. You can always do more work. But we're going to put in like the big fiery like aloe bush here in the front. And then we're going to add some more textured detail in as well. But I wanted to hold time and space to give you all to play with your mountains. You can see mine's wet, but you can see some of the fun detail that I've added. I added secondary colors, right? That was one of your challenges, is try to add a little bit of secondary color. If you want to add a little bit more white here into the background, lighter colors. There we go. You could add a little bit more of the snow in the background if you wanted to add snow. For me, it's just I can you can use an example as light. It's totally up to you. each of our artwork is going to look a little different, so just take it all with a grain of salt. But it's just about following your own intuition throughout class tonight, having fun. All right. Now we're going to add a ton of wild and crazy colors here. It's going to be really, really fun. Now, if anybody happens to have like a palette knife at home or like a tool like a plastic butter knife or something, I have this like Cricut tool here, which is kind of like a flat, soft, kind of fun edge. If anybody has like a side edge tool like this you want to use for some of our kind of textured plant-like detail, you can grab something like that. Sometimes in art kits there are plastic palette knives. I don't have one in arm's distance. I'll probably use this tool right here for tonight. I have this one too, which is I think the same thing. Or a plastic butter knife. You could play with that. It's called like a palette knife. Oh, I do have one over here. Hang on. Called a plastic palette knife. Sometimes they look like this. Kind of looks like a plastic cutlery. But it's a palette knife and we can use it to create some kind of angled areas for our plant, which could be kind of fun if anybody wants to try that. So again, I love demonstrating that art. Lisa, you're so funny. You can use any types of tools. So if you think about this is a great example. Kindergartners use Q-tips as tools sometimes for painting to create little flowers, right? A Q-tip is a tool. You all could use a Q-tip if you wanted to. Like, isn't that funny? You could use a plastic knife. You could use a palette knife, right? You could use a fork. I've done potato classes before, like making stamps out of potatoes and using that as a tool. Like, isn't that so fun? So just know, like, you can use a lot of different tools as you paint. So I'm going to transition us to the next step. I know, isn't that fun, you guys? Ladies and gents. So we're going to transition to the next step. So take a minute to finish up what you're doing, see what fun tools you may have around. Okay. So we're going to do this large plant in the foreground together. So the first colors I see are some greens and then some blue colors. So we are going to mix a green color to use, and I'm going to go for like a grass green. So if you want to be brave with me, well, let's just jump in this together. You can do it. I know you can. So we're going to do yellow and blue mixed together. And I'm just going to use like a normal brush to mix these colors together. So I'm going to do a little bit of yellow and bring in a little bit of blue. And I'm going to mix a grass green. So it takes very little blue. And I added too much blue, as you can see. I got kind of a darker color. That's not too bad, actually. Mixing blue and yellow to make a grass green color. I kind of have a shamrock green. I want to go a little lighter. So I need to add more yellow because I want it to be a little more yellowy. I added too much blue because I was chatting. That's a little more grass green. I'm going to have a lot of this color. That's okay. There's a little bit more of my grass green, okay? A little more lime, a little less. That's more grass green. Okay. I guess it depends on what color your grass is, right? Okay. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you an example of what we're going to do first. You can take a small brush, and I'm going to show you the framework of this plant. And don't go too crazy, okay, friends? I want you to do 6 brush strokes, and we're going to go down here at the bottom. And we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this for me looks like an abstract aloe plant, okay? Oh yeah, do the potato stamps, totally. I'm doing 5 kind of sprigs, okay? So kind of do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I want you to add a few more going up, okay? This is gonna kind of look like a clump of grass. And it's gonna be kind of in a V-like shape. So try to keep it in this V-like shape, okay? and just embrace the process and just go for it. We're going to make this look really good, I promise. And you're not going to add, you want to keep the tops to be a little skinnier and try to keep a little space as it comes up higher to have these just be a little separate. But if you want to fill in this area, you can. So see, I'm starting to create the bush a little bit. And you can go up as high as you want. So I could actually go up a little higher, friends. I can make this go like it's really in the foreground, just overlapping the top of the mountain a little bit, just a little bit. If you don't want to go up that high, you don't have to. I'm being a little courageous because you all know me. I don't mind doing something a little different here. And it's definitely going to go into the road a little bit. It's going to come overlapping the road. So this is, and we're going to add more colors coming out from the side, okay? So we're creating the base of the bush. What you're going to do is we're going to mix a secondary green, and just to show you where we're going, we're doing darker greens on the sides. So we're just going to do a little bit of a darker green on the sides, like a 1-2. See how it looks like a bush still or a plant, but I'm not going all the way down. And you can use a smaller brush here, but see how this is a little darker on the edges. That was my intent. See how it's like contained? That's intentional. And see how it's not going all the way down. So this is just mixing a little bit of blue with that original green. So it's good to get the original green in first. This is a background color, and we need that. But we're going to add a lot more colors on top. So again, we started with the background of this plant. And you can bring it all the way off the edge of your page over here if you need to, okay? And we're going to add in more plants, so don't worry. And we're going to make it pretty, I promise. So embrace the process, trust me. And then mix that darker green if you haven't. And you're going to do, using a small brush, you're going to do some darker green. And you can decide how much or how little of this darker green you want to add in. So this is kind of like secondary color. It doesn't have to be everywhere. You don't have to make it symmetrical. You could just do it a little here and a little over there. Okay. And you can have fun. You can add in, I'm going to add in a little bit of this green little wild plant over here. So you can, with your secondary green, you can come over here and you can add in a little bit of a plant over here. Use a small brush. You can add in some more. The important thing is you're going to add these, they're going to get tiny as you go in the background. So I'm going to show you. You have to do tiny little brush strokes, and the plants are going to be smaller in the distance. See that? See how they're smaller back there? Now, you don't need to add too many, but you can play with it, okay? So I'm here just to demonstrate different examples. Okay? So you can tuck in a little plant right there if you want. See how they're getting smaller? It makes your eye go back towards the distance. Okay? So you can be playful here. You can be abstract. You can add some texture to your plant if you wanted to. You could do little dabs. Totally up to you. This is where you can add some of that texture. Lean back in your chair. Try adding some, this is the biggest one, but try adding a medium size, maybe over here, and then adding a couple of the little ones in. Oh, Mary, thank you so much for joining. Is it possible to lift your paper up a little bit? I can zoom this down. There you go. And my light has a little bit of a reflection here, but it might be. Just know it's a little wet right there. That's why it's looking like that. So I have the bigger plant here, and then I have kind of a medium over here. And you can play with the tip of your brush. So if you want to be really, really specific, you can be very specific. Then you want the edges of your plants. You can use lighter greens. Try using lighter greens and darker greens. Play with bringing these plants to life. This big one I'm just going to let dry because I'm going to be adding a lot more to it. But try adding like a couple darker plants and a couple little lighter plants. You can kind of tuck some in. Think about like creating a scene. So I have like I have little plants of dark green and light green right in here. And I'll hold this a little closer so you can see it. You can also do a little bit of a lighter green plant too, which I'll do for you. So this is like the creativity side of art that everyone's is going to look a little different. You're so welcome. I'll bring this up a little closer if I can. There. So I'm going to do a little bit of a lighter green, a little bit of a lighter green plant. And I could be using a much smaller brush. So let me grab a smaller brush. Sorry, I'm just mixing my paint really quick. My hand's in the way. I'll be back with you in 1 second. I'm just mixing a little bit of this lighter green. Okay. And I can just touch it with a little bit of the lighter color if I wanted to. So you can play with adding in different things here. Now, for anyone that's very detail oriented, you are going to absolutely love using a tiny brush and doing really fine details for these ones over here. Now, I can do more of that after once. So maybe I have these base plants and I let them dry. I can go in and do another detail on top of them. But due to time, I'm just going to do that. I'm going to leave those plants there and I'm going to let them dry because I'm going to add more detail on top of this one over here, okay? So play with adding in a little bit of plants here and there. But what I want to show you is this. We're going to tuck in a little bit of orange and reds and some darker contrasts. Now, the darker contrasts may scare you, but the darker contrasts I want you to use are the darkest colors that you've used on your picture so far. So the darkest colors I'm going to use are these purples and these blues for on my plant. So whatever colors you've used on your darkest mountains are the colors I want you to use on your plant, okay? So what does that look like? Well, let me show you. So what we're going to do is I'm going to add in some of the blues into this plant. And I'm going to use just a small brush to be in control on the under and on the inside of the plant. So the intent of using the darker colors here, so I'm just going to do a little bit of this blue and this teal and this purple, and I'm going to try to get a darker color here, is I'm creating shading and contrast inside of the plant. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to start to layer in some darker colors. Now in the inspiration, they're like bigger brush strokes. And they kind of come out a little wider, so you can decide on like how much or how little you want to do here. Totally up to you. This is contrast. So I'm going to be brave and just go for it. You can follow along. If this is too scary for you, don't worry. I'm going to come in and just add a little, I'm going to add some more contrast here. Like this is another darker bush. So I'm adding a few bits of contrast to the entire foreground here. Like these are darker plants. See, I'm doing this really intentionally. I'm creating like these plant look-like structures. This is all abstract, by the way. And this is like a bluish purple. And I'll bring this all the way down. And I'm going to bring in my darker purple next. And the darker purple is really going to bring everything together. Maybe the darker purple will be at the base of these darker ones here. Maybe this will come in a little bit into here. We're going to put those beautiful orange flowers in too. So this is just adding some darker contrast just on the in. So maybe find some of these stems, some of these branches, and just do a little bit of the darker purple on one side or the other. So see the contrast this added, even it grounded the whole bottom of the painting. Be brave, try adding a little contrast. Add some of those blue bushes down here at the bottom. See the contrast it gave? And the reason it still works is because I use the same colors up at the top. Oh, I love that. Thank you so much, Ziggy. You guys are so fun. So isn't that crazy, the contrast? I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to use all these colors. I'm bringing my eye to the foreground with some of these darker colors, and I'm just going to come in and use the same colors I used on my mountains to create that contrast and to the eye to add that texture. So you kind of have to be imaginative a little bit just to kind of see what happens. But see how it really grounded the bottom of the aloe plant? It wasn't just floating anymore, which was kind of nice, right? I call it an aloe plant. It's probably not an aloe plant, but that's just what's in my head. If you wanted to add a cactus, you could add a cactus. It's totally up to you. But see how I kind of filled in the bottom down here? Isn't that neat? Now I will add some oranges in here. So I'm not going to go too crazy with adding a ton more of this darker colors, but you can see how, and I'm going to zoom out so everybody can see the difference. See how everything matches? I'm going to bring this down a little bit. See how everything matches visually? Isn't that fun? Now, it may have lost my aloe plant a little bit visually. So if you've lost your aloe plant, you can also use, we talked about using your knife technique. If you want to use a little bit of your purple on your knife, you can do a little bit of edging like this, kind of just dragging your knife down on the edges. Isn't that fun? Kind of creating the stems of your flowers. So I'll show you this. I'll bring it up a little closer. So I'm going to be brave and just put a little bit of this purple paint on the side of my palette knife. And I did a little bit right there. But if I want to make this even a little bolder, you can just use your palette knife to create more sturdy kind of branches and stems. And I'm using the edge, so it's a skinny line. If I use the thicker side of this, it'd be just be like a longer smudge. But isn't that fun? What you can create with a palette knife for additional texture. And see how I brought the eye up on this plant a little bit? So if you want to create, little stems, we can do stems for our little, we're going to do little orange flowers, which will be really fun. Isn't that fun? The texture you can create with a palette knife. So you can play with that.
That's really pretty.
Isn't it? Just like a little bit, And you can do that in any area. So I encourage you guys just to play with that a little bit. If you want to bring a little bit over here, those you can just go down straight a little bit. Yeah, it's kind of fun just to kind of bringing in those alternative textures is really what makes art really fun and cool. So I want you to be playful with that. If you want to use the palette knife or, go off and find a plastic knife in your drawer or even a butter knife, you can use that nice solid edge to bring in that texture. Now we're not going to add the orange until the very end, until you're ready at least, because we want everything to dry. If we put orange on top of green or purple, it's just going to look really silly. If you want to play with adding any texture on your path, you can. I'm sure many of you are playing with the elements here in the foreground, so feel free to play with those. But I like the contrast. If you want to add any like lighter colors just to draw your eye in, you could bring in, they added a little bit. I'm going to show you the inspiration because it's kind of cool. I know, it makes it pop, doesn't it? Agave plant, Joyce, yes, thank you. See, they have a little bit of these tan, like little plants coming in. I might pop in some of those like little tan plants. Isn't that fun? So see how these little different colored plants? So this painting is very abstract. I went a little of a different approach, but I see these little tan plants. I might pop in some of these lighter tan plants using my palette knife, but I gotta mix the color first. So as everyone's being playful, I'm not doing my orange flowers yet. I'm wanting things to dry. I'm gonna take a minute to mix a tan color again, and I'm gonna do some of those tan lighter colored plants. So that was oranges and yellows. So I need some more yellow. And a little bit of yellow and a little bit of red. Little red goes a long way, doesn't it, friends? We all learn that the hard way. Every other class I add too much. So I'm gonna use my palette knife and add some of the fun edging. Let's see if I can do this without adding too much. Let's try that. And the white really helps ground. Like if you're painting on top of something, adding white is really important, especially when you're painting on tops of blues and greens. The white really will help hold that color on top. It could be a yellow color too. That's like a nice yellow canary color. I could add a little bit more red and make it orangey, which gives me that sand color. So a little bit more red will give me that orange sand color. Sort of. So we always just do our best, just find a color that you like. And then I'm going to be a little fun and crazy here. I'm going to take my palette knife. I'm going to wipe it off. And I'm going to take my palette knife and I'm going to use just the edge of it. And I'm going to add in some of these little wispies here if I can. I don't even know what's going to happen. I'm just being a little crazy here. Anything you add in the distance needs to be really tiny. So just keep your perspective in mind. I'm just adding in like a few wisps of this like lighter color just to see what happens. And I don't really have a plan. It's kind of adding in some fun like light. So it doesn't really look like much, but it's something. So isn't it funny? Just by adding a little bit of a touch of color, it just brings a little bit of extra texture. And that's just a little dab of color, honestly, with my brush. And you can add that anywhere, you know? You can kind of put it over this. You can kind of edge it into your sandy path. Isn't that a fun thing to try? If you want to edge in your sandy path with your green, you could just pick a little bit of your palette knife and just kind of edge it in, and it makes your path look a little more natural. Isn't that neat? Try that. You could use your finger. If your path is too much of a solid edge, use your finger even. But the palette knife works great. Again, plastic knife in your home. You could use find a fun tool in your kitchen. Surprise yourself. So I just kind of softened that edge and it made it look so artsy and different. Isn't that interesting? Look at that. Just a fun little, happy little Bob Ross accident moment of glory. We have a question from Annabelle. Would you recommend that we write the color mixes? I don't think you need to write them down. If anyone needs help, anybody needs help remembering what the mixes are, just please post it in the chat and I'll tell you. But to make purple, it's blue and red. To make orange, it is, and I would definitely write it down. There's also some color mixing like printouts you can get on the internet for what colors make which things, like brown and greens and all those secondary colors. So if anyone's new to the color theory pieces, the primary colors are blue, red, and yellow. Secondary colors that you make from the primaries are purple, orange, and green. So those are called secondary colors. And then black and white are their own conversations, but at a basic level, you can use them to darken and light. If you are a professional artist, you don't really use black at all because you can create black, using other colors, which is interesting. But yeah, sharing that with you there. But take a few minutes. We're gonna let things dry, and then we're gonna add some oranges in just a minute. But I encourage you to definitely get familiar with the color mixes for sure. So take a moment to play with those details, and we're gonna do the oranges in just a moment. But I hope everyone's having a great time. This has been such a fun class so far. All right. So what we're gonna do is we are gonna add some oranges. So I'm going to find somewhere on my very messy palette to mix an orange. And to mix an orange, it's yellow and red, and I actually have a little spot over here. And I have some over here. So I'm just going to mix red and yellow to make an orange. And there's a couple different oranges that we're going to be mixing. One is like a blood orange and one is like a Florida orange. And we're gonna do the blood orange color first because it's darker. And that is red. So I'm gonna bring this over here. And make sure you mix enough of this. So I'm gonna have you make a blood orange color. Blood orange is just a little bit more red. You'll figure that out pretty quickly. Oops. Just want it to be a little bit of a darker reddish orange. So if you want to take a minute to mix both colors, I want you to have a lighter orange and a darker orange, basically. We're going to do the darker color first. And if you wanted, so since we're painting on blues and purples and greens, you may want to add a little bit of white paint to help us with some basic, like to hold it first. So I may use a little bit of white paint initially for my flower placement, and then go on top of it with my color. This will help cover up the background. So if anybody wants to mix like a little, see, this is my little test strip. I'm going to start with this like whitish color, but I have my other two ready to go. So this is my blood orange, and this is my like orange accent detail. I'm going to do my flower, the basic color, the basic underlying color with this first. So I'm going to start with this whitish color. So get some of this on your brush. And I'm going to do delicate, I'm going to call these delicate abstract flowers. And I'm going to get a small brush, and they're going to be a stalk. It's going to be stalk-like. So you're going to go along the lines of this agave plant as an example. And I'm just going to do a little dot. So I'm going to do a little dot, a little dash. And I want you to create an imaginary kind of stalky flower plant. So do like a 1, 2, 1, 2. And I'll zoom this down so we can do it together. So I kind of created a stalk of a flower. And I did it with the whitish orange color. I did that intentionally. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to add a couple, and it doesn't have to be perfect, but this is my pretty flowers I'm going to be adding in. Now, the more natural you can be, with just kind of skipping around a little bit. See how I left some spacing in between? That was intentional. Anywhere I put white is where I'm going to put my red flowers. I'm going to zoom up a little bit. So I left spacing. Kind of lean back in your chair a little bit. Anywhere you see this whitish pink color are going to be a bright, beautiful, fiery color. It's going to be really inspiring. And the reason we're doing this white color first is because our bright, beautiful colors are going to go right on top of it. So I just did a little bit. You don't need a lot. You can decide how much you want to add. And then just stop and lean back in your chair. Okay? And give that a minute to dry. It is so important to let that dry. I will be teaching, yes, all the classes, Lisa. Yes, in July and August. And then if you want to add I might add like a little bit of orange, like over here a little bit. If you want to add any orange kind of tucked in anywhere else, use this pink underlying color just to kind of get it ready, because you're going to paint on top of that. Okay? Isn't it funny how such a simple picture can come together? I know it's been a lot of work. It's really all going to come together with some of these final steps. So as your pink color dries, this is where you can have fun and going in and adding in some of that fiery orange. And use the tip of your brush and go really gently. Use a nice small brush. You don't have to cover all the pink. Just go where the pink was. You can do big marks. You can do little dashes. Isn't that beautiful? Just a little bit here and there. You can add your, I'm going to add both oranges that I made. I'm going to add my blood orange and I'm going to add my other orange as well. Excuse me. So you can go kind of back and forth. You can add a little bit of both if you wanted to, but don't overdo it. You know, you can add as much or as little as you wish. By adding both color oranges, it's going to be stunning. This is a different style class. Our classes are not always like this. We love doing different things. But I'm alternating between the blood orange and the Florida orange colors. And I'm just tucking them in little tiny touches.
It is so
And
pretty.
isn't it? Didn't it just like totally come together?
Yeah.
I want you all to just feel and see kind of where this goes. This painting, you could spend 2 hours, friends, 3 hours on this painting, and I encourage you to spend that much time if you wish. But again, I'm here just to kind of get you going. Yeah, the colors came out really pretty. But lean back in your chair, kind of close one eye and make decisions on, you don't need to add too much. And you can see why we added that white to really hold that color on top. Now, one of the things that's standing out for me is that I need more contrasting lines. I want more contrasting, the purple in a very thin line for some of my stalks. So once you have some of these um, flowers in, you could do a little line to kind of connect the flower back to the bush. So you could draw in a tiny line if you need to kind of connect if they're floating right now. You don't even need to do that if you don't want to. I want like a little bit more of like that. I just want a couple of purple, more like firming lines. And I could use a brush. Actually, I kind of like the palette knife look better, to be honest. So I just take my palette knife and I try to scrape up any more of this poor purple that I have here. And I put it right on the edge of my palette knife. And I want to do a couple more of those like fiery, strong edges if I can. And I try to do them thin if I can. But for me, that's what I was going for. That's the kind of look I wanted. I wanted to be a little bit more edgy with this straight line. I liked that. And you lean into your own style here tonight. Isn't that fun? But Miss Linda will share our registration for upcoming classes. I would love to see you all again in the future. I hope you're all having so much fun. Play with all these details. And be sure to follow the YouTube channel. The YouTube channel has many of the events that I've done with AARP New Hampshire in the past, plus many other things.
And I put this in the link, but I'll just explain to people. If you go to the aarp.org/nh site and click on the events, it gives you all the events for May and for June. And each one of them has a registration thing next to it. You can just click right on it. It's a hyperlink.
Oh, love that.
So they've made it really easy.
Yeah, perfect. And if anybody wants to play with, adding any like shading or and play with the colors of your path, I didn't really do much. Let me play with the path a little bit. Maybe I add some oranges towards the edges. Maybe I add a little bit more oranges kind of towards the edges. I'm just adding in any contrasting colors to the path, whether it's a little lighter or a little darker. You can kind of play with that. But I encourage you to take your time. This is something that it's just fun to just be in the moment and have fun with playing with all these details. I'm going to fix my path. I made it a little orangey, so I can just add a little bit more yellow. But the nice thing is if you paint something you don't like, just give yourself a little bit of grace. Just let it dry and go back and fix it. Like my path just became a little orangey. That's okay. I know that I can go over and paint over what I just did, so it's no big deal. It's just about just recognizing that you can go back in and make an update. You might need to let it dry, or it might be dry enough already. All good. but adding texture and just seeing what happens. You learn a lot by just doing and trying new things. So I just applaud you all for being here. Tonight's was a little abstract, a little different. So I applaud you for just trying something new with us. Um, it's such a pleasure to have so many of you are returning from previous classes. Maybe there's a little bit of extra white right here on the side of the path just to bring the eye. We don't always do, this is pretty abstract tonight. We don't always do abstract. Sometimes we do animals, but many times we love doing landscapes. But this was a different inspiration for us, and I hope you loved it. Might have been challenging, but I applaud you for trying something new if it was challenging.
Well, you took us out of New Hampshire, so that was fun.
Didn't we? We like totally left New England. We are not in New England right now. We are like Pacific Northwest for sure. Absolutely. Yeah, and you can keep painting and working. You can just lean back in your chair and say, okay, am I good? Do I want to add anything else? Those are all the fun choices you get to make. Um, Another fun tip I can share is if you want to add a little more pop to your flowers, the flowers obviously are already beautiful. You can always add a little touch of a lighter orange to really make just a little touch of a lighter orange. Look at this. To some of your flowers, a little orange, just a tiny light orange dot into some of these red flowers to really bring some light to them. It's really quite pretty. So you can keep your flowers nice and dense if you wish, or you can keep them, you can add a tiny dot to them. Yeah. Even like a little bit of like a white pop, if you want to add a little bit of a white pop to your flowers. This is what happens. If you stay till the end of the class, this is where all the little magic tips happen, which if you've been to these classes before, you know. This is where all the crazy stuff comes out. I'm going to bring this closer so you can see what a little bit of a light pop or touch to these flowers do. And I'm going to put my brush down because I might come in and make them a little more orangey again, but I made them a little lighter just to show you. But I may add them, I may take away some of the lightness, but at least you can see what a little bit of lightness looks like on top of those flowers. I may add a little bit more of the orange and the red again, but it's always fun to see variation. But that's, again, your choice as an artist, to consider, you know, what are the details that you like and why, you know? But I want to thank you all so much for joining. And again, Miss Linda, for your time today. I encourage you all to check out the links that Linda shared in the chat window and join us for our June 17th class. I'll hang out for a couple minutes. And if there's any questions, please let me know. But I want to thank you all for being here. And be sure to sign up for our future class and invite a friend or a family member to join us. We would love that.
Yeah, that was awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Those different oranges add depth.
They do. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm gonna add a little bit more of the dark red back because that was just really punchy. That blood orange. I'm gonna tuck a little bit more blood orange in. Just with the tip of a small brush. And the white might still be there underlying, but I really liked that dark contrasting pop for sure. Thank you everyone so much. So many wonderful words being shared in the chat. So from so many of you. I know the colors were very inspiring tonight. Very inspiring. I encourage you all to take your time and finish this in a way where it's meaningful for you. Okay, that's really important. So thank you for being here. And Miss Linda, thank you again for being the most wonderful host for us tonight.
Oh, you're very welcome, and we hope you feel better.
Thank you so much.
I'm going to stop the recording.
All right. All right. I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your night. Thank you all for being here and the kind words, and we hope to see you again in the future.
All righty, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.